In my most humble opinion, I could confidently say 2024 has to be one of the best years when it comes to gaming. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my top 7 games of 2024. Now this video is going to have about the same rules as my disappointing games, which is basically these include games that didn't release in 2024 but I played it in 2024. But honestly, a lot of these games are from 2024. And lastly, these are just my opinion. I would love to hear your favorite games of 2024, so leave them in the comments down below. Now before we get into the list, if you end up liking this video, then please hit that like button, and if you like the content and would love to see more, then please subscribe. Without further delay, here is my list. The first game on this list actually won Game of the Year in the Game Awards, and that is for Astro Bot. Now, I don't put a lot of credit to those Game Awards, but this year was one of those instances where I fully support the game that won Game of the Year. I think the last one was Breath of the Wild. I feel like Astro Bot deserved every praise that it got, and then some. Because it reminded me that games could just be fun. It doesn't have to be too serious. Now in saying that, I am a huge person who loves story in video games, but there are some times where I'm like, okay, we don't need serious all the time. We can let loose and just have fun. And I feel like Astro Bot really encapsulates that. And side note, but this is also to tell Sony not to focus on just 1 or 2 IPs, but to diversify their catalog and really try something new. Especially when Astro Bot is basically a celebration of previous Sony IPs, ranging from Crash Bandicoot, Okami, Ape Escape, and many more. And funny enough, it really makes you realize a lot of Sony's older IPs that are just left to do nothing. To me and to many others, this game is just nostalgic. But nostalgia aside, the overall package truly lives up to all the hype, because this game is not just good because of nostalgia, it's an actually good platformer. Simple, creative, colorful, and full of charm. And might I add, is up there with Mario. Now I'm not gonna say which one's better because this is not that kind of video, but it's still up there with really good platformers. Astro Bot levels are incredibly creative, featuring power-ups that enhance the gameplay beyond the typical punch and jump mechanics. You could pick up cool objects like boxing gloves. You could also get the monkey one that lets you climb on things. That one I didn't really like, but it's still cool. There's a lot of cool things in this game. Oh, and did I mention, you could ride a puppy to make it into a rocket and use it as transportation. That is peak gaming, 10 out of 10. And after playing it, I can confirm it met my expectations. It was pure fun from start to finish. Now, admittedly so, this game is not really heavy when it comes to the story, but that's perfectly fine. And having a story that's not too serious really adds to the whole fun dynamic in this game. Now, I will say that if you're not really into platformers or games that don't have heavy narrative, this one probably won't be for you, but I still think you'll probably like it. I usually play JRPGs and platformers are not my strong suit, but I did enjoy Astro Bot so much. I do have 2 little nitpicks, one of them being it's locked behind the PlayStation 5, so you really can't buy it on the PlayStation 4, which is very unfortunate. My second nitpick is this game is really short, but if you're going for 100%, this game could be really long. There's a lot of collectibles in this game, true to its form as a platformer. This game defies the PlayStation 5, from its free demo to its own game, and hopefully Sony strikes while the iron is hot. But let's be honest, they probably won't. That's why in our next pick, we're talking about Nintendo, and that is with The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Now, this game was really highly anticipated by me. Also, this is very pivotal because it marks the first time in Zelda history where you get to play and control Princess Zelda. And before someone says anything, I'm not including the CDI games. I feel like every Zelda fan wants to forget that. Now, while I was losing my mind over the trailer, there were some people who weren't really a fan of it, mainly because it's a Zelda game and she doesn't really have a sword, so a lot of people were worried about the gameplay. This is shown immediately with its combat. Rather than hacking and slashing through enemies, you will mostly rely on using the echoes that you obtain to do your fighting, and that is the core of the gameplay mechanic, and you kind of have to embrace it to really enjoy the game. There are over 100 echoes that you could obtain, so some of your your echoes might be to take down an enemy or to solve the many puzzles around Hyrule. And you really get to love the staples. Mine were basically the bed, pots, table. Those were my mainstays. And it really forces you to think outside the box to solve some of these puzzles. But Nintendo did add an option to have a temporary sword mode. It's something if you're really having a challenge with an enemy. And a lot of the puzzles require you to do it a certain way, but you could also do it in a different way and get the same outcome. So it's not like a one size fits all kind of situation. Now, my only complaints about this game is the extensive menu navigation you have to do to summon your echoes. The way you summon them is a lot like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you press the up button and then you have this whole menu of different things, but the menu gets really full the more echoes that you make, and it gets really annoying to find the one that you want and to use it. Now, there are categories which you could organize them, but still it could get really tedious. My last gripe is the story itself. I felt like there could have been more, especially when it comes to Zelda as a character. We rarely see her talk or really get expressions from different characters. They're kind of treating her like Link, essentially. They could have done so much more with her personality. But besides those points, I really enjoyed the game. It was a highlight for me. It was definitely worth the hype, and I'm excited to see where Nintendo goes with this concept of having Zelda a playable character. So all in all, Echoes of Wisdom has to be one of my favorite recent Zelda games. I really enjoyed it. Now on to one of the games that didn't necessarily come out in 2024, but I played them. So the next game is Atelier, Ayesha, and Atelier, Escha, and Logy. Now I put them both together because they're part of the Dust trilogy, so I thought, why not put it in a twofer? In case you haven't noticed, I am a huge Atelier fan. Now 2023 is where I really played the Mysterious trilogy, but this year I really wanted to get into the Dust trilogy, and I beat 2 of the 3 games. Now my journey through the Dust trilogy has been really good. I was kind of scared because it does have the traditional time mechanic where you have to do stuff in a specific amount of time, and everything takes time, like gathering ingredients, synthesizing, gameplay. I was kind of intimidated by that, but once I played it, the time mechanic wasn't really that much of a big deal. And once you get past that, it was a very cozy and fun experience. Now the visuals don't look as good because most of these games came out for the PlayStation 3, so the characters look really nice. The design is awesome, but the environments are just like, they're trying. So while not the most prettiest, I do love the world that the Dust trilogy takes place in. It's simultaneously beautiful but sad to look at. And even though these games are in the same trilogy, they do stand out in a more unique way. Now, I loved Atelier Ayesha, but my favorite has to be Escha and Logy, where you get to play as 2 protagonists, so it really encourages you to play both characters, which I found very cool. Because Escha is the traditional protagonist, she's bubbly and just wants to help everybody out, whereas Logy is a good counterbalance to that. He's more analytical and will say whatever is on his mind kind of vibe. Though Atelier Ayesha is still really good. And Ayesha as a character is just, I don't want to say this as a mean way, but she's kind of ditzy. Like, she's very naive when it comes to a lot of things, and I found that really endearing. But that doesn't mean she's a pushover. She does know how to stand her ground. It's just funny when she's like, I don't know what's going on, but we'll roll with it. Gameplay wise and gameplay feature wise, I would have to say Atelier, Escha, and Logy is the best, mainly because it is the second game in the series, so I had the opportunity to improve on a lot of the things that really made Atelier Ayesha kind of clunky. And I would have to say the same for the alchemy and synthesis process. It is way more better in Escha and Logy. But I will say Atelier Ayesha does have the better story in my opinion, mainly because Ayesha was on a journey to help her sister out, and I do have a sister, so it really tugged on my heartstrings. Overall, I loved both games, and I'm glad that I got to play them in 2024, and hopefully I could beat the 3rd one in 2025 or early 2025. So the next one is a game I recently finished, and honestly, even after rolling credits, I really can't get it out of my head. Please help me. And that is for Metaphor Re Fantazio. Words cannot explain how good this game was. Now, it does have faults, and I'll get to that, but oh my god, it was a near perfect game. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to spoil the game. None of these games are going going into spoilers, so don't worry. Besides the reason that the game is just fantastic, I also really love that Atlus tried a new IP. We're getting a lot of remakes and remasters, which is good. I love it, but too much of it could kind of feel weird. So new IPs to me are very welcome, and its success really shows that we still do want new IPs. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Everything about this game hits in the right spot, from the music, the gameplay, and even the story, which was a highlight for me personally. Now the beginning of the game is really slow, and there was a point where I picked it up, put it down, but once I got to a certain point, I legit just locked in and only played that game. The story was very high stakes. This new world that Atlus made is a power keg about to explode. With the king now killed, a new one needs to be placed, and they kind of have this competition. I want to say a competition, but it's more like a popularity contest. Now this might not be a plus for some people, but the game is so packed with different things that it could honestly be a 90-hour experience. So if you like those slow burns in the winter, highly recommend Metaphor. This game does take its time to explain the lore, the different factions, and all the different characters in play. The gameplay is another component that is just fantastic. And at first glance, the gameplay might look a bit familiar, especially when it comes to Persona, but the main difference and what makes this game stand out is the archetype system. So essentially, the archetype system is the equivalent of a job or class system that we've seen many times before in other JRPGs. It's just really weird to see it in an Atlus game because they really don't do their games like this, which, putting it bluntly, I was kind of overwhelmed with all the different classes and which character is good with each class. It was a lot to take in. Now further on into the game, I got more comfortable with it, and I found myself switching classes in and out and experimenting in different ways. It really allows you to customize your party as you see fit. Now that being said, some characters are better at something than others, but you're gonna have to figure that out yourself, with each archetype having its skills and passive skills for you to use. And there's also a mechanic where you could take skills from a different class and put it in your class. Now the battles are a little bit different from previous Atlus games. It takes a lot of inspiration from the Trails game, especially Trails from Daybreak, which is pretty cool. Now there are a few cons I had with Metaphor, one of them being the ending portion. The pacing takes a real big slog and it feels weird. But my second complaint, I'm just gonna keep this brief to not spoil anybody, but the final boss is ridiculously hard and unfair, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But with all that, I'm glad to say that I played Metaphor in 2024. I remember when the game got announced and I was really hyped, and I'm glad that my hype paid off because it was a really fun experience, and I still can't get it out of my freaking head. Speaking of games I can't get out of my head, the next one is Chrono Trigger. Of course, this one did not come out in 2024, but I played it for the first time in 2024. At first, I thought Chrono Trigger was another case of people overhyping it because of nostalgia, but I am very glad to say I was wrong on that. Let's start off with the story. The story is actually really good. I love how they take the time travel mechanic and they really didn't make it difficult to understand. It was a classic A, B, and C kind of time mechanic. Now on your time adventures, you travel through various eras like the more modern world, the prehistoric world, the monster world, and the dystopian future. And one thing that they really drill into you is that your actions have consequences. For example, in the beginning, Marie drops a necklace and you have the option to give it to her right away, hold on to it, or sell it. I just decided to hold on to it for a little bit and then give it to her, and that does bite you in the butt. It was pretty epic. I love that scene so much. It just does so much in one scene. Now looking back, I do wish there was more scenes like that because the first one is pretty much the biggest one, and then they don't really go through that again. I wish they would have added more scenes like that, but it did get the point across. Your actions in one area could have a significant effect on the events of another environment or era. Now I went for the true ending, but there are many different endings. Now I took the wussy way out because there are some points where I had to pull up a guide. I just couldn't figure it out. Also, not to mention, this game is really short. It has that Goldilocks sweet spot where it's not too long, but it's not too short either. It's kind of just right. And I do like how there's no random encounters. Each encounter is like choreographed to happen. And it's really funny too because you see the monsters go into position. One of the highlights for me are the boss fights. They were really cool, and as soon as you learn their gimmick, they're really easy and fun, except the ending boss. And that wasn't my fault because the game crashed, so I had to beat the final boss all over again. The Steam port is just really bad. Hopefully they could port it to other consoles, but whatever. Playing this game for the first time, I now realize why a lot of people love this game and why it's a classic among the JRPG pantheon of games. It's one of those games where you could put into a time capsule and open it up whenever you want and it will still be fun. And I played it in 2024 and it still holds up. Now on to my next game, and that is for Unicorn Overlord. Right off the bat, this game is fantastic. Vanillaware ceases to amaze me with their art style. It's very pretty. This game has a lot of things that I love from strategy RPGs. You recruit soldiers one by one, build up your army, and get to have some good fun. The strategy in this game has a surprisingly large depth, which makes it kind of intimidating at first, but once you get it, it's super fun. Now, I'm not gonna really go off a limb and say it's better than Fire Emblem, but it's close to there. Instead of focusing on a singular character, you build a unit that contains multiple characters, and it's your job to maximize the unit's potential by placing them in the right situation for success. And I know for a fact that it's easier said than done. The complexity of forming a unit is my favorite part of the game. This game is for people who really like the strategic tactical genre. The game really challenges players to think critically. And yes, I did die a lot because I made a dumb mistake, but you live and you learn. Now, notice that I haven't talked about the story that much, and that's mainly because the story is kind of meh in my opinion, and it's one of the major points that I didn't like about the game, but the gameplay overall really made up for that. Alrighty, now on to the last game. This game was provided to me by Nintendo, so thank you Nintendo, and that is for Emio The Smiling Man. Now, Emio The Smiling Man is a visual novel in the Famicom Detective Club line of games. Now, of course, with visual novels, the most important thing is the story, and the story was fantastic. The story of this game begins with the death of a student under mysterious circumstances, and it quickly ties into an old series of murders that happened 18 years prior, from the local legend, The Smiling Man. The story is the first thing that really got me into this game, which, to be fair, it's a visual novel. It's supposed to do that. Now, I've read a lot of visual novels and a lot of RPGs, and I kind of had something in my head on how it was going to play out, but I was surprisingly surprised. And also, I really love the characters. The side characters are really funny and quirky, and it makes the game more emotional because you really love these characters. I would talk about the gameplay, but this is a visual novel, so apart from pressing A, there's not much gameplay here to really talk about. Emio The Smiling Man does a masterful job with the storytelling and characters, and I will say this game is the best hidden gem of 2024. Now, that is it for my favorite games of 2024. Man, it's been a good year with a lot of good games. Please tell me yours in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. Please leave a like if you like the video, and if you like my channel, would love to see more, then please consider subscribing. I would appreciate it. You can follow me on my socials down below. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of the day, and as always, play a good game. Peace.